This video will talk you through the content in Duff chapter 3. I'd like you to pause it occasionally to have a go at some of the exercises, and I'll put those into the video so you can have a go at them online as well as flicking back and forth in the textbook. Do remember, answers are at the back of the book. We'll go through this in class as well, so if you have any questions, note them down as you go or put them in the discussion on the module and I'll be able to look at them in advance. We need to think about the two new cases and about the other two genders. First of all, however, a recap. In chapter 2, you met the nominative as the subject of a verb and the accusative as an object. You met the basic noun endings, and you met the article that go with these. Ho, ton, hoi, tus. This is a great starting point, and the same pattern is going to carry forward for the other things you'll look at in this chapter. There are two more cases to think about at this point. The first is the genitive, the second the dative. We're going to start off by just thinking about a default way of putting these into English using just one word. For the genitive, that's going to be of, and for the dative, to, or possibly for. Those are very bold ways of doing it, and you will nuance that as you go along. It's a good starting point. The first thing you need is the article. And once you've got the article, the endings for logos should be really obvious. Logu, logor, logorn, logois. We are still following that pattern where the ending of the article gives you the ending of your noun. So once you've got to grips with the definite article, you do have the basic pattern for all your noun endings. I'd now like you to have a go at practice 3.1, which is in the book on page 32. I'll embed that here. Resume when you've finished it. There are a couple of quirks with the genitive and dative. You'll meet more as we go along. But to start off with, the genitive sometimes comes after verbs where you might expect an accusative. And the most obvious example of this is hearing. In Greek, you hear things in the accusative, but people in the genitive. And the idea behind this is that you're really hearing the voice of someone. You're not hearing them clattering around a room. You're probably hearing them speak to you. In Greek, that'll end up looking like this. Akuo, I hear. Ton, logon, the word or message. Versus akuo, to angali. I hear the word. I hear the angel. There aren't too many verbs to do this, and you will get used to it. Similarly, the dative sometimes is used after particular verbs. The one you'll see most frequently is pisteuo. Pisteuo means I believe or trust. And whereas in English you might say you believe in someone, in Greek you just use the dative. So if you see pisteuo, you should expect to see the dative. And if you look at this in the back of a book, you'll find that it says plus dative in the vocab. If we take the definite article, you'll then be in a position to derive the rest of your nouns. So, ho, he, to, ton, turn, to, tu, ters, tu, to, ter, tor, hoi, hi, ta, tu, ta, ta, torn, 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 toy, hi, toy. A few things to notice about the definite article. Neuter plurals all end in alpha, and this is going to be consistent across words you look at. Neuters are the same in the nominative and accusative, in the singular as well. After that, they're the same as the masculine. And in fact, in the genitive plural, everything ends in omega nu, and that will be consistent across words you see as well. As a general rule, O and U sounds go in the masculine, and E and A sounds go in the feminine. And that goes back to that barrel triangle we looked at, front and back axis. So you will find that feminine versions of nouns and other words that inflect often have a very similar ending to the masculine neuter, but with an epsilon or alpha or similar in it. When you're looking at feminines, there are a few varieties, and you do have to pay careful attention to these. It's worth bookmarking the page in the textbook so that you don't forget this. Page 37. The general rule is, if you look at page 37, hemera. Words like hemera that have a rho or a vowel always have an alpha in their endings. Words like doxa that have got any kind of S in there will change between alphas and etas in their paradigm. And words like archer that have got any other kind of sound will retain an eta throughout where one is expected. If you can learn those rules and bookmark this page to keep checking those paradigms, then you'll be okay. Then have a go at the second half of practice 3.3.5, which gives you some noun and article agreements. Do these agree? And if not, what should the correct answer be? The next case is the vocative. The vocative is the case of address. The article, the word for O or the, is always going to be in omega. And in capitals, that looks like that. Or phila, friend. Or Yesu, Jesus. This only affects masculine nouns and mainly second declension ones, so ones like logos. There are others, not as necessary, but they're mainly names. But for now, the only thing you really need to think about is that epsilon that crops up in the second declension. So words like logos will gain an e in the vocative if you want to call to someone. You do see this a little bit in modern Greek. If you know anyone called Kostas, for example, listen out when people are talking to them, because you'll probably hear them say Costa. Names still change in the vocative in some places. The last thing that's introduced in this chapter is the pronoun he, she, it. In Greek, there are lots of pronouns, but their endings are beautifully regular because they follow the definite article. So first of all, this means he, she, it. The accusative, him, her, it. Genitive, his, hers, its. Dative, you then have to put to, him, her, it in it. So thinking about the endings, you're just going to add the endings you've already seen onto the root out. Notice the breathing mark out, it's a negative breathing. Autos, outer, auto, on, en, o, u, s, u, or, or, oi, I, a, us, as, a, own, own, ois, ice, ois. So once you know your definite article, you've now got the pattern for a huge number of other things. This word is really useful. Pronouns, replace nouns, so instead of having to say Cressida went to the shop, Cressida bought some chocolate, Cressida ate the chocolate, you can say Cressida went to the shop, she bought some chocolate, and she ate it. It'll make your writing a lot more condensed and less repetitive, and they used a huge amount of the New Testament to help demarcate all the different groups of people who are going on.